Yo, what's going on, guys? Jared here. Today we're going to be talking about Ryzeal, which is one of the decks coming out of Crossover Breakers. I want to go over all of the decks Crossover Breakers, but I wanted to start with the deck that I feel would probably have the most impact in the long term of the metagame, and that is definitely Ryzeal. And while this deck doesn't actually do a lot, it does what it does very consistently. So that always means there's a lot of room for non-engine, but unfortunately that also means that to be honest, it's pretty boring. It does, like I said, does the same thing over and over again. You're really hand trap dependent and you're non-engine, and your end board is just pretty lackluster. You always end on the Ryzeal guy with the field spell, and like that's pretty much what you're going for. That's really it. And then of course with non-engine to back it up. So overall, this deck is really strong, and it's strong, and not only because it can play so much non-engine. It's really good at playing through things. That is the thing that this deck does extremely well. All of the in-hand effects to summon are inherent. They all chew through everything like it's nothing as a rank 4 toolbox deck, which we haven't seen in quite some time. But that is probably, I think, where most of the power comes in. With you have very important decisions to make as you're doing your lines too, to also play around certain hand traps, more, some more than others. But we'll get a little bit more into that. And of course, this is going to be more developed as the deck comes out and more people play it and test it at events and stuff. But this is always just early stuff that we're looking at together. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. And if you enjoy, please subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Okay, guys, so here is my first iteration of Ryzeal. This is, honestly, it's pretty standard. There's nothing really too crazy in here. This is very normal for the deck. Most decks are probably going to look something similar to this. There's going to be, the non-engine will be switched around, but overall, this is going to be probably most Ryzeal lists. Hand traps, a small package, some more consistency cards, and that's it. That's all it's going to be. But we'll go through the card by card. I want to read over these cards just a little bit so that we actually know what they do on the channel and why they're so strong. So first off, we have Thode Ryzeal. Of course, this deck consists of Fire, Thunders, and Light Pyro, which is something to keep in mind. So Bonfire also has a place in this deck. And they're all fours. Like I said, it's rank 4 based. So the first one is Thode Ryzeal, which is if you have a Ryzeal monster on your field or in your graveyard, you can special summon it. If you do, you can have special summon from the extract for the rest of this turn, except for rank 4 monsters, rank 4 exceed monsters. So something to consider for all these is that when you use the in-hand effect to special summon them, they all lock you into rank 4 monsters, just so that there's like a steady thing that happens here. And then if this card is no more special summon, you can add a Light Pyro monster from your deck to your hand. There is not a lot of other Light Pyro monsters in the game. Trust me, I've looked. It is really just the Ryzeals. So next up we have X Ryzeal, which you can special summon this card from your hand by sending an Exceed monster from your extra deck to the graveyard. This does come up to be able to send certain cards like Aggregator here, which is a negate for something on the field. That really is an out to a lot of the nonsense and cheese cards versus this deck, and it's really frustrating too that this one is also a Pyro, so you are able to Bonfire for it. So it's pretty annoying. But yeah, so like I said, you can set it from extra graveyard to special summon it. Then, of course, if you do, you can always summon Exceeds for rank 4s. If this card is no more special summon and you do not control any face-up monsters other than level or rank 4 monsters, you can add a Fire Thunder from your deck to your hand. So that is now 2 of them that special summon themselves and surge, so they're extenders and starters. Super insane. But yeah, so again, these 2 are, reversible. They can just search each other if they want to. Really strong. Next up, we have Ice Ryzeal, which you can special summon this card from your hand by sending 1 card from your hand or field to the graveyard. That's any card. So again, really strong, just very generic extender here. And of course, you cannot summon except for rank 4s. If this card is normal summoned, you can special summon a Ryzeal monster from your deck. So this is a tour guide on normal summon and an extender in your hand, which is, again, just insane. Like, they're all extenders. The whole deck is extenders and starters. It's ridiculous how good this deck is. And then lastly, we have Node Ryzeal, which is even Exceed monster on your field or in your graveyard. You special summon it. Again, you get locked in. And then you can send 1 card from your hand or field to the graveyard to target a Ryzeal monster in your graveyard, special summon it in defense position, but negate its effect. So this is something along the lines of like a Wolf Bark, right? To be able to special summon 1 of your monsters back. Of course, very normal, right? So we have special from graveyard, special from deck, search, extender. They're literally all extenders. Extender. All 4 of them are extenders. That's all the main deck ones that we are playing. There is another one, but most decks do not play it. It's just not worth it. Next up, we have 3 copies of Bonfire, 3 copies of Pod Desires, and 1 Prosperity. This deck has consistency problems, which is really scary. And I do know that if you Prosperity, you cannot draw. Keep that in mind. So, of course, there's problems with Pod Desires. There's also the Field Spell that draws, and also Dugaras that draws. But I think it's worth the risk because this card is you care about not bricking, right? It's the main thing. And I don't want to play something like Small World where I'm just negging right off the bat in this deck specifically. Whereas Prosperity, I can at least pick and choose what I need to do, especially if I need to go like a going second scenario. I just want to see those important pieces of non-engine, especially if board breakers pick up more steam because of this deck. I can definitely see that being a possibility moving forward. I think hand traps could start to fall out of favor, or at least certain single interaction hand traps could fall out of favor, like effective Veilers and Mourner and stuff like that, because this deck can just chew through them very, very easily, and there's not really a good point to use them against this. So just something to consider. One copy of Call by the Grave. I can see this and Cross out picking up steam as well, because there's just certain important things that you need to be able to hit. I'm also playing one copy of the Ryzeal Hole Thruster. Random thing to note, this is a hole trap card, so you can use it with Rafflesia. Just a random thing that can come up. You can include it in your deck. I am not, but you can. This card, again, normal trap card. Target face-up card your opponent controls up to the number of Ryzeal exceed you control, destroy them, and then you can attach one Ryzeal card from your graveyard to one rank 4 exceed monster you control as a material. And you can banish this card from your graveyard immediately after this effect resolves, exceed summon using monsters you control, including a Ryzeal monster. This comes up if you do use the Rafflesia, you can use you can send this to the graveyard for the Rafflesia and then chain this in the graveyard to be able to exceed over stuff, which is pretty like it's pretty cool. Something kind of unique with this deck that I think is pretty neat. This trap card's graveyard effect has so many implications. Has so many implications that I think really could come up and matter a lot. So just something to consider. So next up we have Ryzeal plugin, quick play spell. Target one exceed monster or Ryzeal monster in your graveyard or banishment. Special summon it. Then you can attach one Ryzeal card from your deck to one rank 4 exceed monster you control as material. Also, you cannot declare attacks for the rest of this turn except for with rank 4 exceed monsters. You can only activate one per turn. Now you're probably thinking, Jared, why do you play only one of these cards? This deck none of the cards had recyclability. Well, that's where the field spell comes in. This is a field spell, thank God. That does not search. This is not like magical meltdown type stuff. All the planets, it's nothing like that. We have Ryzeal Cross, the field spell. So you can actually summon monsters with the same name as cards you control. Target 2 Ryzeal cards in your graveyard. Place them in the bottom of the deck in any order. Draw one card. You can also do this with the extra deck cards. You can only use this effect of Ryzeal Cross once per turn. Once per turn, when your opponent's monsters activate an effect resolves, you can detach one material from a Ryzeal Exceed monster you control, and if you do, negate that effect. Something to keep in mind, this does not activate. It just happens. It is on resolution. There's very few cards that do this, but when they do, it is super important to keep note of. This does it in the middle of the chain. So if there is a chain of things happening, they can choose to negate a card in the middle of the chain. It's very rare where that can come up, but this is one of the cards that can do it, and it's something important to note. You cannot ghost over this effect. It just happens. It is crazy. These are usually the best types of forms of interruption, in my opinion, so just something to keep in mind. Next up, hand traps, ashes, veilers, imperms, mourners, Ferraros, and ghost overs. This is like nothing crazy. I'm only having these in here as you can consider them almost placeholders. It depends where the format's going to go when we get to this set. But this, for now, this is fine. The only thing, like, noteworthy things I want to mention here, Ferraros being a level 4, same thing with Perulia being level 4, definitely relevant. Those are super relevant things in this deck because, as you can tell, they are all extenders. The only one you want normal summon is ice, and if you don't have a way to ice, normal summoning level 4 is still completely fine. So just something to consider. Also, Imperm, being able to hold Imperm in this deck, I think is also really important because, like I said, the only interruptions that they're really ending on is the Detonator and the Field Spell, technically. But the Detonator's most of them, so one Imperm can just, clear an M board almost. It's crazy. It's also, it sounds crazy that this is, going to be, one of the top contending decks of the format, but, consistency is key, right? That's the main thing. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. Side deck, I just have a couple other things you can play. Crossouts, like I said. This card, Twins of the Eclipse, does not come out until Supreme Darkness. Keep that in mind. So yeah, when this comes out, you'll definitely play it, but keep an eye out for this if you're playing this deck, because this will be in Supreme Darkness, and you will play it in this deck when it does come out. Extra copies of Detonator and Duo Drive. You can play Nib. Nib is good into this deck sometimes if they don't get access to Field Spell too early, or if you could stop them searching for the Field Spell. Nibiru can do wonders against this deck. It also turns off one of the effects. What's it called? Is it X Ryzeal, where you have to only control Ryzeals or exceeds? Yeah. So, yeah, Nib's pretty decent if you can give them a monster too. Droll, I think, is okay too. There's a lot of drawing in this deck and searching, Bonfire. People play Small World, things of that nature. And then, of course, they all search them. Not all of them, but a lot of them search themselves. So I think Droll could definitely have a place as well. Next up, Ryzeal Detonator. This is the M board piece that I was talking about. So again, rank 4, 2 Ryzeal monsters. So you have to use Ryzeals for this. You can't use some random extender for this. When your opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, you can detach one material from this card, target one card in the field, destroy it. That is not once per turn, so you can do that as many times as you want. There's going to be 3 to 4 materials on this usually. Just something to keep in mind. You can only use each of the following effects of this once per turn. If this card is a special summon, you can attach one monster from your graveyard to it as material. If an exceed monster you control will be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can detach one material from this card instead. So again, it's technically depending on the amount of materials, that's how many interruptions it has, and it has protection too from those materials. Really, really annoying, and it always has at least one minimally on it, so it's really, really strong. Next up is Ryzeal Duo Drive. This is a generic one, so you can make this with anything. For each material attached to this card, monsters you control gain 100 attack, and monsters your opponent controls lose 100 attack. There's like a Chen Ying effect of the Sword Soul, the level 10 synchro. If this card is special summoned, you can attach one Ryzeal monster from your graveyard to this card as a material. Keep in mind this attaches a Ryzeal monster, and this one attaches any monster from your graveyard, just a little key difference there. During your main phase, you can detach 2 materials from monsters you control, and if you do, add 2 Ryzeal cards with different amps in your deck to your hand. So this is how you're going to be doing a lot of your searching for the spells and traps to be able to get what you need in your hand. Of course, if you draw one of them, you just don't add the other ones, or you can add extenders from the monsters, but a double search is always broken. And keep in mind, this is a Word-like Gigantic Sprite, so you can, if this is the only monster they have and you Ghost Ogre it, they don't search, they need something to detach off the field. But if they have 2 Exceed monsters on the field and you Ghost Ogre it, they can detach off the other one at resolution. So just something to keep in mind. Next up, we have 1 copy of Dugaris, Exciton Knight, Exo Sister Aphelio, 1 copy of Baguska, 1 copy of Light Dragon Adagnister, 1 copy of Aggregator, 1 copy of Utopic Way Rancer, 1 copy of Abyss Dweller, 1 copy of Zeus, 1 copy of Typhon, and 1 copy of Donner. You need Donner to clear your stuff, like Nibiru tokens and stuff of that nature. If your opponent give you stuff, you need to be able to clear it out. Typhon and Zeus and the Ray Lancer, I think, are really cool because you are able to actually exceed these with the trap card as long as their conditions are met. So I think that's just something that's kind of interesting. There's definitely like lines where this can come up. So just keep in mind you have a quick exceed. If any of their conditions are met, you can make these, which I think is really, really interesting. The Typhon is really just for the simplified game states. This is a simple deck, so there's going to be a lot of simplified game state. Your goal is to get the game state to be simplified, and when you do, Typhon is really, really good against this deck because their boss monster is 3000 attack. Typhon bounces, so it can't even protect itself with its protect effect, and there's nothing they can do about it because it's over 3000. So just something to keep in mind. Typhon into this deck I think is pretty strong, and it's also worth playing in this deck. I know you are locked out of them with their restrictions, but believe me, you're just doing these 2 like 9% of the time with an occasional couple of other rank 4s. So this is completely fine. But yeah, that's pretty much it for Ryzeal. This is going to be a deck that it's going to be around for a while. I can definitely see it lasting in the format because of how much non-engine slots there are. Again, it's very adaptable. It's very simple. But the people who, and I think, invest in it and really want to put time in there are going to be rewarded. All those little interactions I think really add up in this deck to where you, as the format progresses and evolves, this deck can also progress and evolve and set up slightly different, like it can change enough stuff in its lines and change its non-engine enough to where it can always kind of adapt and improve. Kind of like Sky Striker did for a really long time. I definitely could see that happening for a deck like this as well. Same thing with something like Centurion where there's so many variables. Not really non-engine wise, but for Centurion, but just different variations of it. I definitely think that this deck can adapt for the format moving forward. Obviously, this is something similar to Sprites as well. Sprites did the same thing. They were able to adapt, improve, overcome for a lot of formats just to be able, because they were so generic. So yeah, that's it for Ryzeal. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys think about this deck down below and which deck you want me to cover next out of Crossover Breakers. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next profile. Bye, guys.